Hey everybody, it's your man James, Mr. Quinn Treasures, back again with some more video action for you. Today another jaunt into my brand new thing I'm doing around here called Shoulda Been A Comic. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that's where I take an old cartoon out of the past that I loved and enjoyed and talk about it, because out of all the stuff that they've done, many cartoons have been turned into comics. These are ones that haven't been, and they should have, I think. So I talk about why that is and, why I think they should make one, and you give you guys some good entertainment out of that. Maybe you learn a little stuff about some classic cartoons as we go along. But I want to thank you all for joining me today, and just want to say before we get into anything else, drop a like down there on the video if you like what you see here to help out the algorithms. Always appreciated. Also, be sure to drop any comments you have on the show, on the idea of making a comic, on anything else you want to talk about. I always like hearing from the people out there. I like to hear what you guys got to say, so drop me some comments. I always like that. Also, be sure to share out some links if you like this, so you can bring in some other people, because hey, got to spread the love, right? Got to get people interested in cool stuff. So you got to share those links. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so yourself, so you don't miss any of the content that I'm putting out around here on the regular. And we can keep you entertained, as it were. But okay, with all that out of the way, today we're going to get into a one. Now, you saw from my last one, I came out big with Thundar the Barbarian. Everybody knows Thundar. This one's a little more esoteric, but it's still a really cool show, and I'm surprised it didn't last long. And on top of that, they never made a comic out of it because it's already connected to a well-known franchise. Of course, I'm talking about Pole Position, and if you didn't heard about the cartoon, again, I understand it only made like 13 episodes, and then they canceled it, one season's worth, and that's all. But based off the video game, but only loosely so. That's the funny thing. So we're going to get into all that here, but first thing we're going to do is we're going to get me off the screen here, because we don't need me. And then we're going to share the screen here, and we're going to again, as I did with Thundar, we're going to let the show speak for itself, because I could say a lot of stuff, of course, but nothing will say it better than the show will say it itself. So let's get that screen shared, and here we go.
From now on, like your parents were, you are the secret force of Pole Position.
They're moving real fast, they're the only ones who can get there on time.
Okay, sis.
And never too far behind, they're always fighting crime.
Stop time, man. Ready when you are, Rhodey.
In the danger zone. Pretty soon they'll be off on a mission.
Hydrofoil mode, Rhodey. Hydrofoil engaged, Dan.
Competition!
What's behind this?
Hovercraft, quick!
Competition!
What's behind this control? Only there are clothes. Sit back and watch them go.
Help, 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 help.
And there you go, Pole Position from 1984, the heart of the 80s. So it was a rockin' theme intro right there. Man, makes me want to break out my old Casio here and now. How about you? Oh, yeah, the synth music. You got to love it. That's part of the 80s, sweetheart. But yes, Pole Position. Pole Position, great show. One that I thought should have lasted a lot longer than it did, but it didn't. Only got 13 episodes, and then they canned it. Unfortunately, it's just the way of the world. Things that are good, they never seem to last, it seems. But yeah, Pole Position, based off the video game, but only loosely so, because it involves racing, because they have a stunt show, as you heard in the intro there, and a couple of the car designs are similar to ones in the game, and that's about the only connection that the game has to the show. All the rest of it, the whole world around it, they just create up out of whole cloth. And like I said, it's funny because you see so many video game things getting all kinds of attention today. I mean, I just did some recent stuff with my good friend Pops where we talked about some movies coming up. You got the new Mario movie coming out with Brie Larson doing one of the voice actings on it, and then you got they're going to they're talking of Call of Duty, a video game being turned into a movie now. So I mean, there's all these things with video games, and yet no one ever thought to do Pole Position as a comic, and yet so many cartoons and video games have comics, and yet Pole Position didn't get one. I always thought that was kind of odd, given the great interest I had with this concept. And it's just one of those things, I guess. We'll never really understand why they do these things, because this is how these people are. But I'm gonna share up some images here for you here now from the show, so we can have our little discussion here, because I always like to give you guys something cool to see, a little something from the show, and there we are. Yeah, this is, and you saw this is right there in the intro. It's there. It is the family. Now, the basic premise of the story here is that it's the story of the Darretts, who are like a stunt driving family of crime fighters, and they go out on tour on this show called the Pole Position Stunt Show, and they fight crime and corruption and things while they're doing the show. And this has all been set up by the government, because that's who's paying for this. They pay for to tour the show around. They pay for the cars and their high tech in there, all that stuff. And originally it was the parents who were doing this, but they were killed in an accident. At least that's what we think it was, an accident. And so then it's taken over by their uncle, who tells the two eldest children, who are both over 18, that, you have to pick up where your parents left off. You got to continue the fight. And that's what they do, And then we got the younger sister in there with her cute little monkey-looking creature there, because you always have to have it. That was always the thing with cartoons in the 80s. They always had to have an entry point for younger people, for little kids, and that's kind of what this character is. But what we don't really know about the show is there's a lot more to it than just racing cars and the campiness of the 80s. There's a lot more to the show than just that. And no one ever thinks about these things, but I'm telling you, it really is like there's some darkness in the story when you really think about it. And I'll get into some of that. But we got some great voice acting here, from people like right there, our boy Dan, the blonde hair, is done by David Coburn. He's an American voice actor who's done tons and tons of work, over his lifetime. Let me see here, what's he done? He's done he's done a lot of work, not just in the show, but also in other cartoons and actual live action stuff. He was on a couple episodes of One Day at a Time back in the day. He was on Different Strokes, Facts of Life, 21 Jump Street, Growing Pains, an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, if you can believe that, and probably his biggest calling card in his acting is his work as Walter Potter for Harry and the Hendersons TV series. But he's done voice work too. And again, his most known voice is that of Captain Planet from Captain Planet and the Planeteers. Remember that cartoon? Yeah, he was the voice of Captain Planet. And he's done work on all kinds of stuff, including video games. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. He's done the Def Jam Fight for New York City. Lots of stuff. He's done a great body of work. And so this is a guy who is very well versed in the acting area of this. But of course, the two biggest names in this, of course, are the one played by the uncle Zach, who's played by Jack Angel, who, if you don't know who Jack Angel is, he was one of the biggest voice actors of the 70s and 80s. I mean, if you were watching cartoons in the 70s and 80s, you heard this man's voice. I mean, he done the Super Friends. He's done Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo. He's done Spider-Man, both, and the one in the 80s, Spider-Man's Amazing Friends, as well as the 90s cartoon he did voices on. He's done DuckTales. He's done Tailspin. He's done, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Voltron. I mean, the list goes on and on. Jem from Jem and the Holograms, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Darkwing Duck. I mean, there is, like I said, if you were watching cartoons in the 70s and 80s, you heard Jack Angel's voice. I mean, just, he's like I call him one of my Magnificent Seven, like some of the greatest voice actors ever. And he's definitely in that category. He's just got a huge, huge body of work. I mean, if there was cartoons being done in those periods, he was on them. The other big name is one of the characters who's a voice of one of the cars, the Ford Mustang that you saw, the sister driving, Tess. That was voiced by Melvin Franklin. And if you don't know who that is, it's the big thing is he was the bass singer for the Motown group The Temptations from 1960 to 1995. I mean, this is a guy, he has real gravitas. This is a guy who was like, huge. He was already a star before he ever touched the show. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, it's kind of funny to me how you got some really great voice actors in this, David Coburn, Jack Angel, you get Melvin Franklin from The Temptations. It's really impressive the kind of voices they got to do the show. And, so again, another mystery to me is, why did it fail so badly? Why did it not last longer than 13 episodes? But the family, I liked how they had the family feel to it, because they're all together and they're all touring the country as they're fighting their crimes and all that stuff. And, it's funny to me how much this show borrowed from so much of other things that was going on at that time. Because again, this is 1984, remember? And you had the video game Spy Hunter, which kind of has a little theme flavor to this. And of course, the biggest knock on this is it looks very much like Knight Rider in a way. Yes, we all know Knight Rider, the good old Hoff. And you got talking cars that can transform and can do all kinds of, and they fight crime just like Michael Knight. Except they're a family instead of just a single person. It's a government agency that's run by other people, and it's just funny how much it borrowed from Knight Rider with this concept, and yet it didn't work, because if you recall, Knight Rider was a hit back in the day. And yet this somehow didn't make the translation for that. It's kind of funny to me how they borrowed so much from Knight Rider and it didn't work out to their favor in that case. But again, it's probably part of the reason why I loved it, is because I did love Knight Rider. That was one of my favorite shows growing up as a kid. You just love watching cars that can drive themselves and talk and do kinds of stunts and all kinds of crazy stuff. That's always a lot of fun. But yeah, they even had in the show a black semi rig, which was something they used to transport the cars in, like a mobile station of like repair and updates and all that kind of stuff. Just like in Knight Rider, just like in Spy Hunter. If you play the Spy Hunter game, when your car gets blown up, the black semi comes up, pulls off to the side, and lets you out with a new car. It's like, there it is, right? So many concepts that were borrowed from other things on the show. And, but yet they made this great world around it. And you really, the characters were rich. And like I said, you're going to see here in a moment, I'm going to show you this next picture here, that there was a darkness to the show. And you can see this right here. Now what you're doing now is the unlike in Knight Rider, where the computer had to stay inside the car, you could remove the computer talking component from these cars. And that's what the sister here is doing. And she's dressed them up as a mother and father, you see, because don't forget, their parents got killed. And so now she's like pretending they're kind of like part of the family now. It's like, there's like a darkness in there, like, the touching on themes of death and coping with death and trying to, get over when you lose somebody you care about. I mean, there was some deep, darker themes involved in the show than just, hey, look, it's fast cars and fighting crime. There was a lot more to it than that. And like I said, it's just another reason why I wondered why the show didn't really hit the way it could have hit. With that, maybe they should have played that up a little more. I don't know, but again, and so that's why I think it'd be great as a comic. Again, a traveling stunt show with people who are working for the government, fighting crime and corruption and things. With cars that have computers that allow them to talk and to transform and, even kind of think, and stuff like that. And you got these young people who are picking up the torch from their fallen parents. I mean, there's so many great aspects in this show. And yet they never seem to, like I said, they just didn't seem to want to do anything with that. And, I just don't know why you wouldn't make it. I mean, there's so much great content in that concept that you could make a great comic book series off it. And again, just like what I said with Thundar, is they're touring the country, right? So they're going all over the place. You don't have to keep it locked in one city, where you go, oh, we're going to run out of stories because we're locked in the same location. They're going everywhere. You can do all over the country. Heck, you probably even do international at some point, have them going over to other countries and maybe, have the government working with other governments, to help fight crime internationally. Who knows? I mean, how big can you make this? I don't know. But it's funny to me that no one ever thought to do that. But, I love the animation style. Of course, it's classic. We have, what is it? The DIC Enterprises, DEEK, were the ones behind this. And, they were instrumental in so many things. They had so many great shows that they were a part of. Inspector Gadget, Hanna-Barbera stuff. They did a whole lot of stuff. They were involved in again, just for me, it's like most of the cartoons I remember growing up watching. They had some hand in it some way or another. And so you got all these great people, all this great stuff, and it's just interesting, like I said, that it never really took off because, I did find this out though. It's kind of interesting. Is that the co-editor and creator of the story, Michael Reeves, said that the original idea behind the show was to have the Derek kids, traveling the world seeking clues to their parents' spy past, perhaps to indicate that their deaths were not accidental. You see, there's a whole other angle right there you could do in a comic book series. The kids are out there fighting crime while they're trying to get clues about what really happened to their parents. Was this just an unfortunate accident, or is it something more? Is it because of this lifestyle they were leading doing this that caused their death? Was it something internal? Was it someone in the government who sold them out? Was it just a bad luck? What was it? That's a great concept for a comic book series right there. I mean, just you think of all the great stories you could get with that. With just that alone, that is just incredible. And again, this is one that I don't think I'm not sure if it's ever been put on DVD even, and that's another travesty. Is a cartoon like this, 13 episodes, you could throw it on a DVD easy, and everyone you could get familiar with the story, you get people interested, and I think this would make a great series, for a company that's that knows how to respect the lore of things like this. Like I could see a great Image series from Skybound featuring Pole Position. And you could even tie it into the rest of their overall Energon universe. You could say the cars are powered by Energon, and that's how you tie it in, because the car, the government has access to some Energon. They use it to help build these cars, and that's what they're powered with, and that's how it ties it in to the Energon universe, And they're touring fighting crime, and maybe once in a while they'll come across a car that's actually a transformer. You see what I'm saying? There's so many great things you can do with this concept, and I'm just so sad that no one's ever thought to try to do any of this with it, because there's so much richness in this. Stories of kids who are fighting crime and, trying to get over the loss of their parents, and, government intrigue and possibilities there, instead of tying it into other forms of franchises. And like I said, and just the Pole Position name itself, that could bring the game back in. Who knows? There could be a brand new Pole Position video game created as a result of this. I mean, look, the possibilities are endless, it seems. It's just a show with endless amounts of possibilities, and no one ever seemed to want to try to work with them and try to figure out how to make that work. And it's really a sad thing to me that that's how it happened. But who knows? Maybe there's rights issues now. Who knows? There's always that craziness. They always let that stuff get in the way of creating something cool. But yeah, this is definitely one that I always enjoyed. One of my favorites as a kid. Like I said, didn't last long, but man, when it was there, I enjoyed it. Pole Position made me a fan of the game, made me a fan of the show. And like I said, that opening intro you saw, that's just, come on, that is spot terrific of just some great synth 80s music. It's like total 80s cheese, but you love it anyway. And again, just the classic thing of every intro, they give you all the basics you need right there in the intro to get you into the show. So if you missed an episode or you're new to the show, that intro gets you caught right up and you're right into the thick of it with everybody else. And that's just some great stuff right there. Again, just stuff they don't really do anymore. They don't really have the care and concern and consideration that they used to for stuff like this. They just see it as disposable and who cares. But but I care. And that's part of why I do this show now, is I want people to know about these things. Go out there and look it up. I think you'll probably find some episodes of this on YouTube, and just watch it for yourself and find out. And I think you'll see, you'll come to see some of what I've been talking about here is like, there's just so much richness. There's so much possibilities in this show. So many things you could do when making it a comic, and it could all work. And, I just don't know why anyone hasn't thought to try to do this. I mean, just one of those mysteries of the universe, I guess, that they had a great concept and just nobody quite know what to do with it. And there we have another one in the books for you guys. Pole Position. Like I said, a little more esoteric than Thundar the Barbarian is, but still, again, just a great show. And again, one that should have been a comic. It had so much potential, has so many rich concepts you can mine for years of storytelling. And they just never did it, even though they had some really great voice work on there, some very high profile, big names in doing voice work, including a major star from like the Temptations doing one of the voices. And yet all of it was enough to keep the show going. And it never got a comic, despite so many other books out there, other shows who got books about them that weren't nearly as good as Pole Position. And yet they got a comic, but yet somehow Pole Position never did. And just one of those mysteries of the universe to me of why that kind of happens. But, it's just the way it is. But I'll show the appreciation. I'll show the love if nobody else wants to. So I hope you guys enjoyed checking that out. I hope I got you some cool stuff there. You learned a little something. I know I did. Like I said, I had no idea that they were going to take the show. The original concept was to have them searching for clues to their parents, past to see what happened to them. That might have been what could have saved the show. Who knows? But I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And again, drop me some comments. Let me know what you think. Do you think Pole Position sounds cool? Or do you think it's just more typical 80 cheese? It's better that it's gone. Who knows? Let me know what you guys think down below. I want to hear what you got to say. And also, like I said, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of this stuff as I'm putting it out on the regular. And I will be back soon with some more stuff. Like I said, I'm working on some stuff in the background. I got a couple things I'm working on with some other people. We'll see how it breaks down. But I'll be back soon with some of that. And, and of course, as always, I got a new Why It's Great that's be coming up in probably the next couple of days here. And should be a good time. So I got definitely stuff in the pipeline for you. And I will be back more with some stuff for you very soon. And until next time, take care.